You know, when when WSX first aired, I remember, of course, being someone who's involved in the internet and likes to read the different things and the dirt sheets and boards. I'd go check out the reviews, and the first review I read that would say something about me running around the ring wild and annoying and this and that, and I was like, oh, this person didn't like me. And then I'd read the second and third reviews, and it was the kind of same thing, and then the fourth and fifth and the 30th and 40th, and everyone was just bashing me for yelling around and screaming and yelling and running and this and that. And it's like, once again, it was what I was asked to do. It's the kind of thing that on set, any time my energy level dropped, I had the earpiece in my ear, and I had the MTV execs, the Big Vision execs, all of them just yelling at me to pick up the energy. You got to make it louder. You got to make it more hype. You got to turn it up. So I tried to give them what they wanted, and I did it to the best of my abilities. And when I watch it, I think I did a really good job. My big issue is I don't like the look of a lot of my costumes. But once again, that was a cause of my own. I had a big temper tantrum with the MTV people on the pilot because I was all decked out in the carnival circus style of dress, and then they wanted me to switch last minute to a very plain, just common look, and I wasn't too into it. And in the end, I wish I would have gotten to stay that way because it probably would have helped me a lot more in terms of my broadcasting career than dressing like a crazy freak with the eye makeup. But it was a good time, and I mean, the experience was awesome. The show was awesome, and it's just a shame that it got canceled.
What do you feel ultimately led to it being canceled?
MTV itself was going through a lot of crazy things and a lot of corporate changes. This was, once again, the time is as the world was going through changes in terms of business and the economy, that all the companies were doing their layoffs at the point that it was airing. I think it was like almost 1,000 employees or more than 1,000 employees were let go at MTV, like in the time leading up to the WSX premiere, and that included one of their entire marketing department at one point. So I think the show is just doomed from the beginning. There was also a change in terms of the executive vice president of programming. So when the new programming director essentially came through, WSX may not have been on their priority list where it was on the previous's, so we kind of just got screwed and just lost in the shuffle.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, besides doing XPW and as well as the Wrestling Society X, you had a short run in TNA. What are your memories of that?
TNA wasn't my favorite time, and in fact, it was probably one of my least favorite times of my wrestling career. I relocated myself down to Nashville to try to make an opportunity happen down there, and it finally did. They brought me into a faction with Christopher Daniels, two other guys, Spider Nate Webb, and I don't know if I reveal the third name. It's always one of those others. I don't know if he likes to be revealed because he's normally a masked wrestler, but another current masked wrestler in the ROH scene, and they put us together in this faction. But they really never did anything to develop it, and it was really a shame because they didn't do anything in terms of characters or character names. We were just these cult followers and known as the followers of Christopher Daniels, and none of us had any identity, and they asked us to just stand there with our hands out and blank faces, and it was just really crazy and something that was doomed to fail from the beginning, especially because at that day and age in TNA, it seemed as if they would push people. But then the minute that those people started getting over with the crowd, they'd squash them so Jarrett can go get the main event and the main position. And it was just that, it's the same thing that kind of happened. Like, previous to Christopher Daniels, it was a situation where Loki was getting over with the crowd, and then all of a sudden they squashed him to Jarrett. And then Daniels was getting over with the crowd, and they brought in the followers, and we started this thing up, and then they squashed him to Jarrett. And then Dutch Mantell came in as a booker, and he completely scrapped the followers. And after about 6 weeks on the weekly pay-per-views, it was all over for us, and we were never seen again. I don't have fond memories down there. I wasn't paid very well. I would say, I can't say I was mistreated. I was treated fine, but I just remember, like, on my first show there, I'm walking around in the back, and with the reputation of me coming from XPW at that time, Bill Behrens comes up to me, and he's just like, "Oh, Smiley, I hear you're taking a big bump tonight." And I look at him, and I'm like, "I am?" He's like, "Yeah, it's in the format. You're taking a big bump." So I go, and I find out, I go talk to the agents, or I think I even talked to Jarrett at that point because he was involved in the angle. And Jarrett's like, "Yeah, Smiley, we were hoping we could throw you off the balcony." And I was wondering if you'd do that without a table. And I looked at him like he was crazy. Like, you could throw me off a balcony and you want me to land on the floor with no table. You got to be out of your mind. And I gave him this puzzled look of kind of like, I'm not really into that. I don't even have a character name. And then Nate Webb volunteered for the spot. And he, I let him take the bump. And I don't know if they looked at me that I was soft or I was difficult or, I was hard to deal with, but there was no chance I was going to let them throw me off of a balcony on my first or second appearance with no character name and no rhyme or reason for it to be done just because they knew I had this reputation that I've taken some big bumps. I mean, when I took big bumps in XPW, it was in profile storylines, profile matches. I was paid well. It was in front of a great crowd, and there was a reason for me to be doing it. I just felt they were trying to take advantage of me just based on a reputation, and because of that, I just never can feel, I just don't have a nice, fond place in my heart for TNA.
Now, did you get a chance to speak with Christopher Daniels a lot? Do you have any thoughts on Christopher Daniels?
Daniels is a great worker and a really nice guy. I mean, he's one of those guys who loves the business, is incredibly passionate about it, and continues to learn himself. He's the kind of guy who's going to go sit and listen to every veteran's story. Anyone who's got more experience than him, even people who have less experience, he's going to listen to their stories and, so that he can learn from their experiences and adapt them to how it's going to make him a better wrestler as a whole. He's a great guy and a great performer.
Now, did you have any interaction with Dixie Carter while in TNA, and if so, what are your feelings on her?
I didn't have too much interaction with Dixie. She kind of came in she came in and took over as I was kind of on my way out. So when Dutch came in, that was when Dixie kind of got hired, brought in on a more prolific manner. I'd met her, said hi to her, and this and that, but not too much. I do remember one of the times after I was on after I was already off TNA, when I was in the crowd at one of the TNA events, and a bunch of fans came up and started asking me for autographs, and I just remember Dixie being like 2 rows behind me, talking to her people, like, who's that guy? Who's that guy? I did have an interaction with Dixie about a year ago at Bound for Glory when it was out here in L.A., because I was trying to get her hooked up with one of my students from my wrestling school. And she kind of faded my calls, wouldn't return my calls or messages. And, my student ended up actually getting signed by WWE. He's under developmental right now down at FCW. But I went up to Dixie at the after party after Bound for Glory, introduced myself again, told her that I'd been trying to get a hold of her, get her in touch with the next big thing of wrestling. My man Kyle, 6'4", 275 pounds, former NFL, unbelievable physique. He's kind of a mixture of a Batista and a Randy Orton, with unbelievable athletic ability. I mean, he's just a superstar in the making. And I wanted to get them in touch. And I told Dixie that she dropped the ball because she didn't return my call. And it was pretty fun to kind of go see her eyes bug out when I told her that she really did drop the ball. That she had, could have had access to this unknown guy who no one's ever seen, who you really could build a company around, but she missed it because I wasn't a former WWE name or someone like that making the call.
Now, speaking of your school, what made you decide to start the Fit Pit?
Wrestling's something I'm passionate about and something I love, and they always tell you that, you got to find the kind of work that you love so that it's not work. So that, everyone tries to make a living at this wrestling game, and it's really difficult to do. So the best way for me to be able to do that was to go start a school and create a product, and create a crew of guys who have a grasp and understanding of my philosophy of pro wrestling, which is a lot different than what a lot of the typical traditional trainers have a mindset for. I'm definitely what I call a new school mind and bring a new school approach. Is I'm not necessarily looking for a school that only caters to people who want to make wrestling their life and their career, and and they live, sleep, drink it. I want to reach out to the guys who just love it and want to live the dream and have the opportunity and chance to just have fun and step through the ring and do what they've always wanted to do and never been able to do. I mean, you can grow up and you can get into any sport like basketball, baseball, football, if you want to play it, you can go find a bunch of your friends, go out onto a field, and you can play the sport. Wrestling's one of those taboo things. You're not supposed to do that. It's dangerous. It becomes backyard wrestling. So I wanted to create a school that was a little friendlier, so to speak, a little bit more mainstream, and a little bit more open to developing something fun and exciting, and something that people are passionate about going to every week, while at the same time reducing the risk of injury and trying to keep everyone safe. I mean, I'm proud to say that in about a year and a half now of us being open, we've only had one minor injury through the whole thing, through our whole training time. And I am a firm believer it's because of my training style. I do things a little differently, as I was saying, and I really try to develop each guy to their utmost potential and take them to a level that they never thought where they can be. I mean, not just as a wrestler, but improving their overall self-esteem, their confidence, their pride in themselves. I mean, it's amazing for me to see the transformation that my guys have gone through, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. I mean, I remember my original core guys coming in about a year and a half ago, and I see them now, and they're like they're just new men. I mean, they have so much more confidence than they ever had, and they have so much more just personality and charisma, because that's the other thing I do different. I focus on the character. I focus on the performance and the performer. So many other wrestling schools will teach you how to wrestle, but I teach you how to be a professional wrestler. I teach you how to be a larger-than-life, charisma-spewing, action-doing, just larger-than-life superstar presence and persona. I mean, I have a WWE sports entertainment mentality, and that's the kind of wrestling I like to push and develop.
Certainly sounds like it gives you a lot of pride when you see one of your students succeed. Now, what other kind of values do you try to instill in your students that you didn't necessarily pick up during your own training?
Well, the one thing that so many wrestlers and wrestling trainers always say is that you got to respect the business. And I think that people say that blindly without knowing what it means, and I don't think it's an accurate statement or a teaching technique that should be taught. I think the truth is that the business doesn't respect most of its wrestlers, and thus you have to take advantage of the business. So you respect the people of the business, but you take advantage of the business. Respect the worker, take advantage of the business. You're in a business, and for that reason, you're there to make opportunities happen and make the most of those opportunities. So if you blindly respect the business, all that's going to happen is you're going to get taken advantage of for years and years and years of your career. If you can actually use the business and respect the people who are in it and treat the people with respect and thus get respect given to you, you're going to have a lot more successful career instead of just blindly sitting there and doing what's told. I mean, it may make you difficult. Some promoters may think that you're hard to deal with because you speak your mind, but the fact is you're a human being before you're a professional wrestler, and the most important thing is being a respectful human being, carrying yourself with dignity, pride, self-respect, self-confidence, and walking around, with your head held up high, and not being a sleazebag or a dirtbag. I mean, there's so many wrestlers in the industry who have such low moral fiber and need to increase their moral mucil supplementation that it's the kind of thing that I'd rather my guys not make it in terms of becoming stars of the wrestling industry, but instead become better people and know that their wrestling training has something to do with making them a better person in the long run.
Now, how can listeners who are looking to be trained get in contact with you?
You can hit up the website at www.makemeaprowrestler.com. You could search for the Fit Pit Pro Wrestling School up on Facebook and check out the page there. There's always information about the events. And from there, there's a phone number that I don't know offhand memorized. The phone number's there. You can call in, leave a message. We'll get back to you and give you any information and more details that you're looking for. You could also send an email, and we get you started. I mean, it's the kind of thing that if you come in, you're going to love it. You're never going to want to stop. And it's truthfully going to be something that you'll cherish for the rest of your entire life. If you've ever had the dream, you got to take action and make action happen and make the call.